All right, well, we certainly want to thank Mr. James and Mr. Martis for their presentations and their time today. We do have a couple people that want to speak to you about living amongst the turbines. Zach Kramer, I believe, from Sanilac County, and Mr. Crone is from Huron County. They'd like to tell you about living amongst the turbines in their words.
Hello, my name is Zach Kramer. From Minden City, own property in Minden Township and Delaware Township. I'd first like to just thank you for giving me a few minutes to tell you my story about living with and working with wind turbines in our area. My wife is also along with me on this. She did approve my story here today, and I was one of those people that originally thought these wind turbines were really, really neat. I've never ever listened to any type of a wind study person or seen any of this data. So for me today, this is partly a good experience and a bad experience because it's pretty upsetting to hear what this gentleman just had to tell me, what I've been experiencing for the last 4 or 5 years living with wind turbines and never seen any of this data. I am one of those more sensitive type people. I am in tune with nature and used to love to hunt, and I can hear storms coming and the wind blowing, and apparently they are affecting me a lot more than I thought that they were affecting me. So this is just my story. I'm not formally educated on any of these topics, and I've got just a 4-page Living in Michigan Wind 2 and DTE Wind Energy. They do affect me, and we deserve a say. I worked for 6 years for a large automotive-based event company. Doing this, I traveled a lot and was stationed for work in 49 U.S. states. I had seen many large wind turbine developments, always way off in the distance, with hundreds of machines spinning. From a distance, these massive spinning man-made giants were amazing. These developments were never accompanied by housing, farms, towns, and schools. They were always in very isolated areas and terrain. I was one of the people that thought these wind turbine developments were pretty cool. When rumors started about wind turbines coming to the thumb, I often found myself in conversation with other young people discussing reasons for these turbines and where they would put them. Being someone that was well-traveled and had seen so many of these wind turbines, I usually always promoted these big giants as not being any kind of a nuisance to travel by. The main contradictory point some of my friends would contest was they're here every day, Zach. Living with them and traveling by them are two very different things. For a long time I could not wrap myself around this. I would try and imagine living next to these turbines and doing everyday things around them. Before I knew it, we were seeing the first turbine developments in the thumb. I would drive and visit these areas quite frequently, always looking for different potential ways of impact. 20 visits later still didn't make me realize what they are like to live near every day of the year. I learned this in hindsight, like so many people are learning in the U.S. and the world. My wife and I had started restoring my great-grandparents' home, in which they had built themselves 100 years ago. We were very excited about having this 4th-generation home and started with the roof, doors, and windows. We had $20,000 invested. Within months of hearing rumors of a 52 wind turbine development centered in our township, we saw things being underway. Start building turbines. This was a project that had to be done by the end of the year. In order to get the federal money reimbursement, this is what we were told, and it was going to happen no matter anyone's objections. When these turbines got built, nothing slowed the progress down. If these companies had any roadblocks along the way, they just spent the amount of dollars necessary to overcome them. There was seeming no budget to keep within, or any limit to what these companies could do. Wow, this got our attention. In a short time, I had 3 turbines in front of my house, a half a mile away. One behind my house at 1,500 feet, and 2 more behind my house, a half a mile. I'd like to say that 1,500-foot wind turbine by our township zoning was allowed to be at 1,320 feet, but our township thought, well, they're telling us this isn't going to be a problem. In Minden City, they could put them 1,000 feet from our home. Exelon Wind came into our township and said, we just came out of a bunch of problems in Upley. Let's just by our own accord put them at 1,500 feet. And people don't realize that. Did the townships and the zoning boards go back and rethink this or change their laws? 1,500 feet was way too close. Moving on, I drive to my third generation family business. We have 4 wind turbines all the way around us at a half a mile and 1 at 2,000 feet. In all directions, wherever I look, I have red flashing lights. My barnyard has sheds on 3 sides making a box. The noise this makes is one of the strangest noises I know, never knowing when it's going to happen. I have never heard of a wind turbine promoter, which is confusing, giving nighttime tours of a wind development. And I'd like to see that be happening versus a daytime tour for other townships to go check out. During the daytime, I can really never hear the turbines. The terrible noise really never comes till late afternoon and evening, and then into the night. This happens right about the time I really used to enjoy hunting. Right when the evening air becomes still at ground level, and all the noises become alive. All of a sudden, the noise from the turbines moving air becomes audible to my human ear. It becomes a louder and much more confusing sound. I can't tell if I'm hearing noise in front of me, behind me, or beside me. As the air current pushes the noise around, I start to become dizzy and disoriented. And I haven't even started to look up and see the giant spinning blades or red flashing lights. Electric motor whining that comes and goes, and a directional motor noise mixes in with this. This strange pulsating sound is the most agitating noise I have ever heard on a nightly occurrence. In my barnyard, there are evenings where this noise is louder, and this is a true story, is louder than standing on outdoor loading of jet loading at Detroit Metro Airport, where I've probably loaded 30 times in my life, where I have been many times, and I can say that over and over again. Those times might only be 15, 20, 30 nights a year, but that's a true story. So when he says it depends on when they're there testing for noise, that is a true story. I've got a bunch of topics that I'd just like to talk about. When we started having to deal with these, at the same time oil came into our county. To drill oil, we need a block of landowners in agreement, 1 mile by 2 miles, in order to put a well in. And then everyone in that area was going to get paid. Well, this is all conflicting. No one ever asked my wife and I our agreements or input about wind turbines. My permission is not needed above the ground for something that is going to affect my home and property and is within sight and sound of me. How can this be getting missed by our government, by our county, and our zoning, township zoning? Underground is not affecting us physically, and yet we are protected from this. Yet we build a turbine on a property where a landowner doesn't even live, and non-participating homes are affected, yet they don't get a saver benefit. It's so confusing to me. We can't build wind turbines within 3 miles of our lakefront property out in Delaware Township. The fear is there's going to be tax evaluations might go down. For me, this is a conflict. Why is my land not at stake for this land value change? All of our wealthy landowners, to me, it seems someday will have a place they can afford to retreat and live away from the wind turbines. Very conflicting data. One of the next topics that goes right along with this, well, we're not a landowner, so we're just jealous. We're not getting any money. Some homeowners get benefits. It's all going to depend on who's promoting this and which company comes to you. If you sign an agreement, when Exelon came into our area, they had an agreement that was $2,000 a year for 20 years. That's on paper. And I have friends and family members getting this. That's $40,000 payable to a home worth $40,000. That's 5% of the investment per year those people are getting. The main thing is these people can't ever complain, join suit against them, or complain about noise and flicker. And you need to sign the contract. That's the main thing. You're going to sign this contract and don't ever complain. That could be called a gag order. I don't know what that term means, but the idea when they present it to you, just make sure that you're never going to complain about this. We have 3 family homes that were affected by this in my direct family. Only one of those family homes was offered that deal. So it depends on which homeowner you are, and if you have ever complained about this situation before, it all depends on who you are. And they can stand there and say that it doesn't depend, but it does depend. When friends of ours are asked if they could receive more money, turbine companies told them they aren't even required to pay them. This is just a peace offering to ease the tension in the neighborhood. Take it or leave it. This is just helping people be positive and not complain. If I'm a landowner and own 100 acres, worth right now by me selling land all around us this fall and last fall for $10,000 an acre is worth $1 million. They're going to give me $10,000 a year approximately for a turbine. And they're going to use and occupy my land. That is 1% of my investment. And I lose the rights and occupancy to my land. This is all very inconsistent data and needs to be changed. So to have people say that because you're not a landowner, you're just jealous, to me the landowners have the game, a bigger game, and nobody realizes this. A topic that we started looking at was, okay, there's no complaints. Well, we covered that just now. The next way that there isn't any complaints, there's not many people like me. Your friends say, ah, you're crazy. These aren't that bad. 1 year into it, backyard deck parties, everybody's hanging out, working out in the garden and the lawn, flicker through my blinds. These things are annoying. Almost all of my friends, these things are annoying. They're getting paid. 2 years into it, don't even bring the topic up anymore. They won't even talk about it. It's a bad thing. People don't want to admit they're wrong. It goes away. Some of the other things we started looking into. Land. Where can we go next? Do we move out of state? Everywhere I drive, there's wind turbines. I've been in 22 states this summer alone. There's wind turbines everywhere. When is this going to stop? I find myself wanting to go where these wind turbines aren't spinning. I go to my friend's shed, it doesn't matter what it is. I retreat back to Mid-City, in fact, where they're further away from town than they are out in the country. So now we're going to improve our village house. And I bought a shop in Mid-City to have a place to work. They're all at least 3,500 feet from our house. They still impact us at 3,500 feet. We've planted 100 or more 15-foot pine transplants at thousands of dollars to speed up a tree line around our home. We love to come over in this area and shop land. And maybe we can keep some land around us that doesn't have wind turbines on it. Who knows if that'll happen. We drive to Sandusky, we get to a break from wind turbines spinning in our line of sight all the time. Marlette, down M53. It's a nice way to get a break from where we live and work every day. Another topic people throw back at us, comparisons to progress. You can't stop this progress. You know, what did the people do when they had electric lines come in? And freeways and ships running around? And my answer to it is, there is no comparison. These are spinning skyscrapers that are in my line of sight in all directions. They're spinning, and that is a sickening motion just in itself. Not even hearing the data of what's going on that I can feel. Another way I feel they've been tricking people in Sanilac County is the distance from Ruth Road at what these wind turbines were placed. Everybody thinks this 1,320 feet is where they're at. This is where they're going to be by my home. They drive down Ruth Road. It's our main road down through this wind park. They're all at least a half a mile, except for 3 out of the 52 wind turbines. And now that we had 17 more, there's only 3 within a half a mile from Ruth Road. So when these people are driving down the road, they're getting a false impression on how far away they're going to be from our homes. Another topic is researching after they got built. We're all going to research after they get built. We're not going to do it ahead of time. We're not going to let this thing slow down and get a couple years of research. So when you research Vestas and their best producing wind turbine, they talk about percentages of efficiency that we're spending all this money on, 20 and 25 and 30%. After all the money we have to create to pay for these dirty dollars are paying for these wind turbines. Is it green? It's not green. Somebody had to make the money, I believe, from fossil fuels, earth metals, and minerals to make the money to pay for the wind turbine itself. It's not factual data that they're giving us. You need to look into the facts. To be green, don't we want every dollar to count as much as possible? Like he showed us, spending money on having a power plant in a dairy farm. To me, 25% would mean I would need to have 4 pickup trucks in order to have one pickup truck that I could count on to get the job done. It doesn't make sense. For every 2 megawatt wind turbine we build, we need to build 3 more 2 megawatt wind turbines somewhere else in the world in order to know we will have 2 megawatts of energy, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is not green. High efficiency is green by definition. 25% is not efficient. The next topic I have listed here, little topic, subsidy. I talk about this with my friends and my neighbors, my in-laws. If I'm trying to farm and clear 200 acres farming every year, per acre, yet somebody had to give me $1,000 per acre to make that $200 an acre, does this mean I'm clearing $200 an acre? Or does this mean I'm going behind $800 an acre? Just because they're turning doesn't mean they're turning a profit. The electrical output should be affordable for all of us public to see. We should have an app on our computer or even a visible meter at the road where they're running. If they're not efficient enough to create their own revenue, who will be able to keep funding them? All the entities and individuals, including landowners, will quit receiving any money one day. America just needs the electricity. And you guys are forced to live with it, by the way. If you don't like it, move out. This is exactly what the Tennessee Valley Authority told the largest offset of population in the U.S., which is recorded history, and all you need to do is look it up, when they wanted to flood and make hydroelectricity all across the south of America, which actually probably makes sense because it's somewhat efficient. If we don't be careful with how close we put these things in our areas, we're going to be forced to leave, and people aren't realizing that. It'll be just another canceled program. If our zoning and regulations are not in play, promises by wind companies to only have 1 or 2 per square mile will not be recognized. Our governments need to have enough in play to protect us from overwhelming amount of turbines being built. If everyone whose land is being affected is receiving funding from wind, people wouldn't be fighting to make it easy for turbine companies to have places to put them. 1,320 feet is too close. Show me on a plot book where this is not possible. This wouldn't be a problem if our governments had reasonable systems in play to protect us. There could be one in every township at 2,600 feet. People are not educated on issues when pushy salespeople come through and offer money. Many adult people and elderly landowners are stating they won't have to live with them for very long, but they would just like to help create some money for younger generations. These are the same people that are most often being warned to watch out for phone or mail order scams. All of our elderly people around here that own this land. Right and wrong is my last topic. I'll finish it up with this. We got a question to ask ourselves, is it right or wrong? The big question is, are non-participants being affected? Yes. Should we, as affected homeowners, have a say? Yes. Individuals should be concerned about doing the right thing versus collecting another check and becoming a supposed random individual who receives a wind turbine on their property and gets to collect money. The first line, I believe, in all of our contracts that you guys are going to sign should show concern for all your neighboring parties involved within a certain reasonable distance. These citizens need to be in agreement with the distance from their home and also how much money everyone will receive. I say, right or wrong, let's think of our neighbors and not just their checkbooks.
Thank you. Mine won't be quite as elaborate as for this gentleman prior to me. I didn't write a speech. I'm just a regular Joe Blow, farmer, landowner, up by Elton. That was approached by a developer, turned him away 5 times. Fifth time he come back. He says, I got your mom down the road, I've got your aunt, I've got your cousin. I said, I don't want any. I got a hybrid unit. I own 500-600 acres of land. I'm tearing out fence rows. I do not want to go around a wind turbine. That's what I kept telling him. Finally come back, he said, fine. You don't have to take any wind turbines. All we want is your wind. We're not going to put any more than 2 wind turbines per section. And I finally gave in. They promised quite a lot of money, but it's not there. It's very, very small compared to what they told us what would happen, at least so far. I ended up with only a sliver of 1 turbine on a fence row where I already had the fence row tore out. They ended up, when I did give in and sign, what they do, they come in and you're basically, like the gentleman said, you give them permission, they tromp all over your farms, they wreck tile, ruin the ground for who knows how many years. And when the thing that they don't show you is that when they come in to build one of these and they push dirt out, and maybe every developer is a little different, 200 plus feet each way. Dig the hole, fill it full of cement. It's a big deal. As far as I'm concerned, the little bit that is there is not worth the headaches to farmers that devoted their whole life to making that ground better, better, better. Because it don't take them very long. Because it's almost like the more it rains, the more they want to be out there building. You know, they cross your land, right through crops. Sure, they come back and they compensate you. They come back and they try fixing the tile. The following spring, we still couldn't plant sugar beets. I told the guys, I says, hey, the only way you're going to fix that tile is we've got to replace them. So we put in there 10,000 feet in last spring, where I wasn't even getting any turbines, but they still tramp all over your land, so you really want to think what you're getting into. And another thing is the turbine size. The first ones up there by Elkton, we refer to them as the babies. They're like 1.5s. Then they got a little bigger, 1.7, 1.8. The Vesta turbines, in their health and safety handbook, it tells you in there, like was explained earlier, it's 1,640 feet. But these developers don't tell you that. They don't inform anybody that I know of. So you end up with wind turbines in our area that aren't much more than 1,000 feet. And there is health issues. And they vary from one lady, headache so bad, ice picks. Somebody jabbing ice picks in her head. In the sleeplessness, I don't have any other than this little sliver on one farm, but I've got 3 of them that aren't on my property, approximately half a mile from my house. And I will agree that they do affect your sleep. Sure, I'm older, I'm too big, but I'm I'm tired, and I was always a go-getter. I haul sugar beets, I run a 6-axle semi, we've got 5 of them, not all that size, but like yesterday, we were hauling beets, thrashing corn, planting wheat, spreading fertilizer, a lot of irons in the fire. A lot of stuff going on. And as far as and now they're back in, the developers, they want to put in more turbines. And my feeling is, I own the land, even though I'm under contract. I don't want any, and I don't want any around me. I don't mean to be anti-wind, but I don't believe that the investment that goes into them things can justify our dollars that go into building them. Because a lot of it is your money.
Yes, sir.
That's building them. And as far as effects, health effects, there is a lot to what these guys were talking about, the Shirley Wind study over there. I'm glad to see that health departments work with the people that are having issues. Over there, they're a 2.5, from what I understand. Okay? The project that just started up the other side of Kindy are, I believe, 2.2s, a little bit bigger. They keep creeping the size up. The other side of Pigeon, the Geronimo project, they're talking, being they got set back from the lake 3 miles, they're talking 3.5 or larger megawatt. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the setback distance is based on the smaller ones. If they want to put in bigger, then the setback ought to be increased, whether it's 1,000 feet or 1,250 feet per megawatt. Because the most important thing is the health, safety, and welfare of the people. Money don't do you no good if you don't have any health.
You're right. You're right.
Right?
You're darn right.
Okay. These developers, they come in, maybe they're not educated on all this stuff. I got hooked up with a guy in Wisconsin on the Wind Council, and he's trying to help us in our area. With already 328 of them here in Huron County, or approximately, I mean, we're overrun already. We more than did our share, as far as I'm concerned, especially the little bit, and this is kind of for you. The landowners, at least a lot of them, aren't getting that much. And the little bit that you get is not worth risking your health in the way I see it.
There ain't no money worth that.
That is right. Thank you. Another thing that I feel, the people that live around them 24/7. If you live there and you work there, maybe your neighbor works in town, he's gone away from them, he'll have less effects, in my feeling. Okay? My mom's 83, she lives down the road from me. She didn't want any on her farm. Now, they're coming back in and they want to put up more. Well, we're kind of trying to buck the system. We need a little help, you know. I can't really find fault, because when I went to the first township meeting here a month ago, one of the neighbor ladies that was having some issues and I were the first 2 people that ever come to the meeting. We basically put our trust in our local people on these boards, which was said earlier today. They're not educated on these issues, and they basically follow, in my opinion, what the developer preaches to them. Now, I would bet any amount that when they went to put their Vista turbines in, not finding fault with them, and it has it in their health and safety instruction manual, 1,640 feet. Now, you think they went to the board or any of these landowners and said that maybe your health might be jeopardized, or you're not in the safety zone, we should move them out rather than 1320. And we got them as close as approximately 1,000, some of my neighbors. And there is health issues starting to show up, and it varies. We got a 320-page report out of Wisconsin from Shirley on people that got sick, they went to the doctor, they ended up, stuff got reported to the health department, they moved out of their homes, they would get better. They go back to their homes, they get sick again. But those are 2.5s, so they're a little bit bigger. And I want everybody to know that these developers keep raising the kilowatt or the megawatts of them, it seems to me. And they're bringing them in. The noise level, like you was talked about, that was another thing, just like was said earlier. It was 55. Too high. And the same thing with the low frequency, the infrasound. Nobody is really measuring that. They don't recognize that they have quality equipment to do it. In my opinion, it's the developers and maybe somewhat the government. NASA looked at these turbines way back in '79, and we do have information on it, that they looked at them from '79 to '88 and basically said, you know, they're no good. And there is, we got literature if somebody wants to read. I don't know how I got involved in this. I'm just a regular Joe Blow farmer, like a lot of yous. And it's just like, and I don't go to church every Sunday, but I do believe in someone upstairs. And it's just like he grabbed me by the shirt collar, because I was basically the only one peddling this information, trying to educate my neighbors on the possible health issues with these things. In Meade Township, I do have land in Meade. I maybe was involved a little bit, but when people become aware of what's going to happen in their backyard, they kind of take up, they take notice. And they don't want one of those things in their backyard going woof, woof, woof. Country people like the quietness. That you can go outside and hear the birds, or the neighbor's dog barking, right? I can go on and on and on, and my stuff's all right off the cuff. It's just in my mind, and I just feel that the developers want to cover all this stuff up. They don't tell you all the facts. And for you farmers that are out there that are thinking about these, when they put the map together where they're going to put them, oh, that isn't so bad. But then make sure you know where the crane path is, where the connection line's going, because when they plow that line in 5 feet deep, and they go crossways of an 80, you know how the tile are going to work? Excuse my language, not worth it. So, I don't know, I don't know what else I can tell you. Is I can stand up here and go on and on, but them developers, they're only in for one thing, and me, as far as I'm concerned, the money. And it's back to, everybody here's money, because it's tax dollars at work. I believe, but I'm not sure, somebody said Texas cut out the money. They're probably not building anymore then. So, I don't know if solar's the answer. All I know is these wind turbines, and I sit up in bed at night to go to the bathroom. I don't sleep through the night normally, whether it's the wind turbines or what, but when I sit up and look out the window, I got 30 plus lights blinking. So it looks like Star Wars. give us a break. If they would have told us more about how they were going to treat our ground and the consequences of these, I got a lot of neighbors that do have wind turbines, and if they had it to do it over again, it wouldn't happen. Because the few dollars that are there, and possibly the health issues that are going to probably get worse, it's not worth it. It's not worth it, in my view. Go ahead.
Yeah, you got the windmills, like you say, on your property, and wherever I see the windmills, I always see those big, tall electric poles going in, carrying the electricity away. How much noise do you get off of the power lines? Can you hear them humming?
If you go over by them, and they tell me this was on YouTube, I'm not a YouTube person, but they claim you can take a 8-foot fluorescent light bulb, and if you're in the right spot, and the wind turbines are really spinning, pushing juice down those wires, it'll light up. How close do you want to be to it? I want to try it. Don't we, Bob? Bob, we're going to try it. Aren't we? And I think that would maybe get somebody's attention. And back to the Shirley thing, the health department, then they declared it a health risk. Not pointing fingers, but our health department in Bad Axe was contacted. Now, as far as I'm concerned, something should have been put in the paper and tried to educate the people, you know, so there was a little bit of caution when the developer comes in. Here's 250 bucks. Here's $500. All you gotta do is sign. Oh, jeekers. If all they got is a house lot, they can't get the pen out fast enough. How can this hurt me? So there, they got their vote, and it's just like he said. What can they do? They're part of the windmill team. They signed for that little amount. A good friend of mine, I believe he got 250. And they promised him 1,000 every year if the development goes through. And he'll tell you, if he was here, I can't wait till they get up. But nobody is stepping up to the plate and educating the people on the consequences of these bigger turbines, in my view. You need to know where they are. I asked them at the county level, at the meeting, the 2.2s that are going out to Kindy. I asked them, is there any data on where they are or if they're affecting the people? They were going to look into it. So hopefully something happens. I've probably tied your afternoon up enough.
Thanks for everybody that spoke. And can I just ask the other people that spoke to just stand up here with me? We got time for just a few questions. If you have any questions from any of us, we'd be glad to answer them. Other than that, we're going to go to refreshments and you can all talk to us afterwards. So are there any questions for any of us here? Yes, sir.
What kind of problems are you finding with reproduction in cattle?
There's been a lot of anecdotal information from farmers, but I think the anecdotal information, for example, in Shirley Wind, there was a breeder who was very well known for dairy stock, who after the wind turbines went in had so much problem with stillbirth and other health issues that he closed his farm. Over in Portugal, one of the best documented cases was a breeder of high-end racehorses, and over a 7-year period, the health of the horses deteriorated. The family was also having problems, and this was a court case that the landowner just won. But documentation showed the horses with deformed hooves and other deformities that are not part of that breed. So we've heard a lot of things, but we've never been able to get a good scientific study. But there are a lot of farmers who do raise cattle, chickens, other kinds of livestock who have reported adverse effects.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, is that 1.25 miles considered like a safe zone that the sound from the windmills, you wouldn't be affected by it?
The 1.25 miles, when we originally came up with that, that was to protect against audible noise. Because at about that distance, the sounds of the wind turbines no longer dominate. They're part of the background. But in Shirley Wind, where we've studied the infrasound, the Board of Health has looked at the data and the complaints and the medical reports, and they're saying now that 2.5 miles may be a necessary distance. And they have some people who have documented cases of adverse effects, particularly nausea, et cetera, up to 4 miles. And when I did a test in that home, we found that even though that home was much farther than I had expected, the tones were present. It may be a topography thing, but we were able to correlate the tones in the homes to the wife's complaints at 4 miles. So in Shirley Wind, the Board of Health is really looking at declaring the risk zones to be much larger for infrasound than for wind turbine audible sound. In Ontario, just on the other side of Lake Huron, up near Kincardine, there are hundreds of wind turbines. And my colleague who does testing using similar equipment up there has measured those tones out to distances of 50 miles. And we started that, we were up at Port Elgin, Saugeen Shores, which is about 10 miles north of Kincardine. And we were measuring a small wind turbine used by the UAW at a training center. And the wind turbine didn't start, it was supposed to start at a certain time for us testing. And we noticed in our data that we had the tones already there, even with the wind turbine off. And it happened to be a day where the winds were blowing from Kincardine north, and they were the same frequency as the hub rotation speed for the turbines down in Kincardine. So 2.5 miles is now, I think, considered to be a reasonable distance. It's a big hurdle for the industry. But if the industry quits denying that there's a problem and starts working on solutions, then maybe they'd be farther along. As of right now, all they've done is claim that there's no truth to any of these allegations and have not put any effort into trying to find better designs. But I would say, you know, 1.25 miles is now not a safe zone. It's just where most of the problems will be within that radius, and they continue on out further.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for the last gentleman that spoke. I'm thinking about moving from Shelby Township up here because I like what I see here. Quite I want to come up here and live. Would it be a safe investment for me to come and buy some land here from some of you people that might want to sell to me and move up here? Would it be a good investment for me to come here, or I'm going to lose my ass because of these women?
My advice, you have to get to your local boards, your local townships, if they're zoned. You need to get those zoning ordinances beefed up to either slow them down or make it super safe. There is an ordinance really close to here. It's 1 million cash and dig out all the cement. You know how many windmills are there? None. Okay? Maybe you want to look at that area. And another thing, to know how much legwork has been into some of these, and I was really surprised after digging into this a little bit this last 6 months. There was there was people from here in county that went out to Wisconsin and interviewed people way back in '08. They weren't having health issues, but they were having, one dairy farmer, one gentleman asked about the livestock, was having problems with stray voltage. Really, really bad. He had a voltmeter right in the presentation. He could shut all his juice off and the stray voltage was still there. He'd get a hold of the electric companies, they would change some stuff and it would go down for a while. But he lost a lot of cattle. He said it affected the that was the first gentleman I talked to on the phone out there when I first started looking into this a little bit. I got his name from these people that went out there and interviewed him. He was a dairy farmer, and he said the 2-year-old cattle were affected the most. He said the blood would run right out of their noses. You could dip it out of the manger with a 5-gallon pail. This guy had 400 cows. I found out 2 months ago, he moved. He moved his whole dairy herd, 450 cows, away from there and had a voltage guy design it. And I did talk to this guy that designed it. And to help with his livestock health issue. And when I called, oh golly, this is probably 3-4 weeks ago, it was like their fair week. And I talked to his wife and she said, he's probably not going to have time to call you back, it's fair week out here. They had them cows, after moving them, they had them up to just about 100 pounds. And he had them, when he had the stray voltage issue, and nobody even talks about stray voltage on any of this stuff. And what there's to it, I don't really know. I'm like the rest of you, I'm just a plain farm boy. But if we're gonna have issues like that, we gotta have precautions. We gotta take safety measures. Because the most important thing is your health, safety, and welfare, not that little bit of money. Thank you.
We're going to take one last question. I forgot to introduce Bob McLean, who's also the vice chairman of the Wind Subcommittee in Huron County. We've been here a very long time, so I don't expect all of us to sit here. I know what it's like to sit in these chairs. We'll take one last question here, and then please, feel free to chat with any of us. Raimi, do you have any more to say at this point?
We've got some info back here on the table.
The stuff at the back table, help yourself, and feel free to ask questions. Okay, well, I'll take 2 if they're quick. Go ahead.
The more turbines there are, wouldn't the noise seem to resonate off each other and bounce? The other question is, why do the people in Bad Axe, the Huron County Commission, they say they're acknowledging that there is a problem, but they say there's no standard, so we're going to ignore it. I begged them at a public hearing, please do not ignore infrasound. Well, ANSI standards doesn't have a standard that will hold up in court, so they're not even going to put that in their ordinance at all.
Well, that's really a interesting answer. ANSI doesn't have standards for anything. They set up the procedures for how we measure everything. ANSI doesn't have a limit for car noise or for refrigerator noise. That's not their business. The people that set standards are the local boards. And so they're basically trying to point their finger away and not wanting to do their job. Yeah, the standards are for how to take an accurate measurement. And that's the last thing they want to admit, because then they know that they'd be exposed as having accepted machines that really don't meet health standards.
When they mandated this 5% green energy, did these guys that was voting on this know all this?
No, and it was 10% in 2008. It's called PA 295.
Right.
Fortunately, there were enough legislators who were dubious about this that 10% turned out to only be a few percent required to get it because of the way they did the math. Otherwise, we'd have a lot more turbines yet. No, they didn't know. I mean, and these same types of mandates were adopted in states all around the country as a result of being peddled by the wind lobby. And so that's how they showed up, and they partnered with the environmental movement to try and sell these things as a package. Fortunately, right now, the state legislature, despite Governor Snyder wanting more renewables in the state legislature is not inclined to force any more renewables in the state as a result of a mandate. I think they're going to rely on the Clean Power Plan to drive some growth for it. I think we see a lot more gas coming in Michigan. It will depend on what happens with the next election. If somebody very conservative gets in, the EPA and their Clean Power Plan might get the heave-ho. It's hard to know which way it's going. But as long, what wind takes to develop is access to a grid and permissive zoning. If the wind guys can get those two things, they'll find somebody to buy it somewhere. And that's what's driving it. Our mandate is filled. They've reached the 10%. Yet these projects are still going forward. They're going to find somebody to buy them somewhere. So, great question. Okay, one last one. It's okay.
I'm sorry. As I understand it, the referendum that's coming up, we haven't addressed the referendum. Doesn't have anything to do with whether we want wind or not. It has to do with zoning. Am I right?
Correct. That's my understanding of it, and I don't have a dog in the referendum battle. I'm not here making a political pitch.
I understand.
But the question is whether or not you will accept, if you want to preserve the rules that were adopted by your trustee boards or not.
And that's yes. If we want to preserve what the trustee board already decided, that's yes. And if we don't like that, we want to have more say-so in it or whatever, that's no.
That's correct.
Yeah, I haven't seen the ballot language. Randy assures me that
That's correct. If you want to try to redo the ordinance to get the setbacks, change the setbacks, it's a no-go. In Moore Township.
very good. Thanks so much. Thanks, Randy, for asking us here.
Thank you to our speakers, we appreciate it. There is info back here on the table, help yourself to it. There's still cookies and stuff at the back, please take care of that. And if you got questions or anything, I'm sure these guys will stick around to answer anything one-on-one. Thank you again.